All right, traders, welcome to today's recap. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Monday, June 17th. The sixth day of being in the same exact spot here for the S&P futures. And so the 2,900 level continues to be the barrier to entry to go, basically for a breakout here. And again, it's since we've kind of tagged this level, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, it's five out of 6 days, right, where we've been in this range. But we've tagged this level now 6 days. So we, of course, made it through the value area, but are having a really difficult time with trying to break out further. And the price action, I'll go through a couple of the sectors that were trending today. There were some bright spots today, but overall, I think the price action just remains very choppy. Being that the market is doing this, consolidating, you could see some long wicks on these candles. What does that mean? It means during the day, part of the day, we are exploring higher areas or higher levels, and then we're coming right back in. So that's the story. A lot of times in the first hour of the day, a couple names that I was looking at that I had set up that were on my weekend setup list, watch list for Tribeca Trade Group members, got off to a beautiful start in the beginning of the day. They just kind of fell back, and it just kind of goes to show you that it's a different type of market right now. And even though like some of my setups that I had that I sent out to members this weekend were going, off to a great start, and I was about to chase a couple of them. Because again, they're things that for setups for this week, I'm like, let's hold off a little bit and we'll wait and see how things go the rest of the day. And I'll tell you, that's really been I think the best thing to do right now. Depending on what type of a trader you are, right? Of course, I'm not giving any recommendations or advice during the video, but I'm mostly a swing trader. I do a very small amount of scalping in relation to overall swing trading, and swing trading is really difficult right now because you come in the morning, and even today in the morning it wasn't, the pattern has been that the mornings have been the strongest, so you can kind of sell into that a little bit, but we weren't really up much in the beginning of the day. We were up about 10 basis points, so there wasn't a ton of selling that you could do either. So I think right now, we've been talking about a couple things like premium selling. Unfortunately, so the main event, right, is Wednesday. I thought we would get maybe a little bit of movement before Wednesday because of quadruple witching and positioning, which does happen way ahead of time. That's on Friday, where all the S&P and Nasdaq indexes rebalance. But you do get the positioning, really starts today. And will last kind of through the week. So and again, there was some separation between sectors. There were some sectors that trended for the day, which is nice to see that. But just for the most part, this is what the market is doing. So yeah, before I go into the performers of the day and some of the option activity, what are we looking at for Wednesday? Because again, it seems like all eyes at this point. Which is really disappointing that it's such an overhang right now for the market. So this came down. I think this got to a high on Friday of about 25%, where they were expecting a rate cut, a 25% chance of a rate cut coming for Wednesday. I didn't. If you heard my video on Friday, I completely disagree with that. I think you're hearing more people in the financial press say that today. But I all along, and I don't think that this is right either. So I am a little bit worried about when the market is pricing in rate cuts, and I don't think that Powell is going to do that. And if you look at historically what happens when Powell speaks, it is not such a dovish event. So if you're looking for a big surprise on Wednesday that this market is going to break out, I would rather let this price action prove it to me first rather than take a shot here. Because I do think, considering it's been 6 days, this range, if we start to move higher and we've got some momentum to it, I think we continue higher. I don't think you're gonna get into those situations where you go up one day and everybody's gonna be, oh wow, we moved too much. I would be actually looking to follow that day, but I've got to see a break 2,900. If you're a member and you're wondering, why I'm not trading so much, because it's just too much chop. I think really sitting on your hands right now. I've also talked about because again, I don't think you could sell premium a whole lot right now because implied volatility is going to stay high until the Fed meeting on Wednesday. So I don't see a big drop off that you're going to see in volatility. Maybe some short covering might bring it down a little bit, but because I don't think shorts want to be short into this meeting either. I think people really want to be positioned lightly into this. And again, that's just what I'm my take on what I think is going to happen here. And then the other thing that I'm worried about is if what Powell usually does is he's not the most dovish speaker, and I know that there's some stats out there. If anybody has it, please hit me with it. But I think it's something like 70 or 80% of the chance, there are 70 or 80% of the times that he speaks, the market goes down. Right, so the market does not like him. So if you're looking for the Fed to provide the next leg for this market, I would be more pleased if he just kind of comes away with the meeting and says, uh, we're going to be patient and it could happen, but I don't think that the market is going to line this up for July. So I think the risk is to the downside for this. And, even maybe if we fall one or 2 days, maybe that will get some buying, some people to maybe come off the sidelines and think it's a dip to buy. But I don't like this setup going into the Fed meeting, and I've said that. I said that last week too. Unfortunately, I was hoping for a little bit of more intraday volatility, but I mean this is unbelievable. The amount, just the small range that we're getting, and it's not even. Of course we've seen this before that where the market chops and doesn't move, but I mean we're talking about if you look on the 5 minute bar. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, we've done this now several days in a row where we've opened, whoops, we've we've opened right where we've closed for the day. So, I think the more that this goes on, the bigger move that for the market is coming, right? So here's where we opened. Here's where we closed. It is exactly the same. So this is this is the biggest head scratcher. This is where we closed. This is where we opened on Monday, and I guess we closed a touch higher on what is this? I guess that was Friday. Thursday, where's Thursday? But I think Thursday was exactly the same too. So if you're frustrated with this market, I don't blame you. You just kind of have to be patient. Where's Thursday? Thursday in the morning is here, and we close exactly the same thing. So, and look at the support on the top of value. So, it's quite insane, I would say, that we keep doing this. Where's Friday? Is this Friday? Yeah, here's Friday. Yeah, so this was the move, right? I mean, basically right around, again, unched. So, it is it is very interesting that this is going on. Let's look at the 1 hour bar here in the S&P. So again, this is what's a little bit called coiled when you get something like this. But look at the value area for the week, which we are inside value. I've talked about this now a couple times. We talked about this pre-market, but look at how slim this value area. That usually means a big move is coming. So that could be Wednesday, it could be Thursday, it could be Friday. Tuesday, I'm already chalking up to it's probably going to be a day. It might be a day if it's nice out, go out. I keep advocating, feeding the ducks during the day, but it is what it is. Sometimes sitting on your hands and just being patient. And the best way to be patient, I think, in this market is to have stock positions. If you're not comfortable with that, and because, the one thing that is positive, options versus stock, we did a big webinar on that a few months back. The differences between when it's advantageous to be using stock and it's advantageous to be using options. Right now, it's advantageous to be trading stock. You don't lose anything if the market doesn't go anywhere. It's a big advantage. I know that that just from looking on Twitter, which I don't really get because let me finish my thought. I don't really get that I keep hearing about premium killing and so forth. Just do something different. Trade stock if that is a major headwind for you, or if you can't trade stock, then you kind of just have to sit on the sidelines a bit. But making adjustments is what traders have to do as the market changes. You can't just have the same strategy and expect it to work in any market environment. So tweaks and adjustments are really what I think leads to profitability. Being rigid and not changing your strategy, you're going to be kind of get caught up in this, and you're going to get frustrated. Which I tell you, I'm frustrated. This has been a it's been to be here a week and basically just have to sit on my hands. And we've said this numerous days now, where I said either 10 o'clock, okay, that's it for the day, or like I think today I said it was either between 10:30 and 11, like, hey, that's it today. I think that's all we're gonna get in terms of movement. So again, being patient and trading the right instruments. So don't be afraid to trade stock. Now, will I be holding a lot of stock for Wednesday's Fed meeting? If I will be holding positions, I will be designing some hedges. So that brings us for tomorrow. I will go over that in the trading room tomorrow with members. Basically what I would be looking at is if we break below value here. So again, always worried about the risk first rather than the reward. And I think with the VIX around 15, I think you can design some pretty good hedges that are not going to be expensive, right? We know when the VIX gets above 20 that insurance or hedging costs a lot more. Around a 15, it's pretty cheap. So I think it'll be fairly cheap. I probably want to do that more in the beginning of the day because I do expect volatility to increase going into this Fed meeting, but maybe that happens a little bit on Wednesday. But I wouldn't be surprised if the VIX ticked up tomorrow as well. But again, really tight coiling. I'll give you these levels. We go over these levels in the trading room all the time. But basically, 2,900, which coincides with that level on the daily chart, as well as on the downside, 2,883. Now, of course, we should have some barriers here, or some other support levels, but we could knife through either to the upside or to the downside after being in a 6-day range. All right, so what did move today? So I spent a little bit more time, but I think it's good to go over because if you're frustrated with this market right now, don't basically don't overtrade and don't revenge trade. You just have to be just patient and take a deep breath, go for a walk, so on and so forth. Get a nice lunch, which as traders we don't normally take lunches, but take a nice lunch right now, maybe tomorrow, because I'm not really anticipating much tomorrow, but maybe something, being that I'm not anticipating much, maybe something does change. Okay, so that's the S&P you could see in blue. Again, this is this spreadsheet, very good. I've been using this a lot because it tells me where buyers are coming into intraday, not just in the overnight session. But SPY finished unched. There was a little bit of momentum there in NASDAQ. The FANG stocks really took off. That was kind of the story of the day. You could see the FANG stocks, especially Facebook and Netflix, were up. Facebook was up over 4% today, so it had some follow-through move from the ends of through the end of last week. Netflix, we did talk about how Netflix was down, I think, 5 days in a row, so it was due for a bounce. So you got it. Am I playing any one of these further? No, absolutely not. I do have a little bit of Amazon, which I was lucky enough to take a target this morning. But I would, these right now, what these names are doing. Now, Facebook had 2 days of a rally, but for the most part, I think what happens with these FANG stocks is they rally one day and then you look for follow through and they don't have it. So I would say let the FANG stocks prove it. But I just don't think that these are going to be the market leaders. I think they're going to have one day like this, and if you catch the one day of a rally, congratulations to you. But I think for the most part, then they go back and they chop for 2 weeks. I think they run maybe 1 out of every 8 or 9 days. So you got it today. Will it happen tomorrow? Possibly. Maybe the quadruple witching is making them being positioned around a little bit more, but certainly you got the Fang Day today. All of these names did pretty well. They all went up from the open. Microsoft was the only one that didn't participate. Of course, biotech. I'm already 15 minutes into the video, and I haven't talked about biotech. A couple deals in this space getting this group going. If you take a look at this group, and I sent out a trade idea if you want to play a little bit of continuation. If XBI just pulls back a little bit. If you look at the daily, because on the 1 hour it's a little bit overbought, but look at the volume and look at it take out all of this action. I mean, this has been, speaking of choppy, this the equally weighted biotech ETF, right? Very different than IBB. XBI is the one that I look at. I do look at the other ones, and we'll bring up those charts. But a huge day, up 4.7%. I do think we could see continuation here. The level that you could trade against here is 84.56. We also saw some call activity in, what is this one? Bold. I took some of this one. I've never traded this before, but I like the chart pattern in this. We saw some July calls. The first one that we saw today was Fold. I actually took some of those and then I got out of them. I just think it's going to be a hard trade. And I think also, speaking of stocks that you could trade with stock rather than options, it's $11 stock. I decided to get out of it because a move just basically a dollar, and I think they bought 13 straight calls for July. That's basically, I think, is all that the stock could get to on from a technical basis. But they went after that one. There was also some Sarepta. So a lot of these charts, right, they look pretty appealing because look at how this is what's known as coiled. When you have the 3 moving average wrapped around one another, I've got the 5, 20, and the 50. So Sarepta looks really interesting. Notice you have a version point of control $5 higher. So this looks like a pretty good setup to me. There were some calls bought and some puts sold for this one. I've got this on my spreadsheet just so if you want to see the strikes in here. It was the July 5th strike, but Bold was another one. Fold, I mentioned that one, and there was a couple other ones that we saw just a little bit of call buying into. This also looks like a pretty good setup. This was a member who brought this to my attention. I tried trading this one, I think, back in here, and I made a little bit of money on it. But RDUS, this looks pretty nice. So again, forget about option activity. This is probably the nicest setup out of all of them. And you could see you could try to shoot for a 28.75 virgin point of control. That's a nice bang for your buck if it can get there. And notice it's trading out of that range. Also on the weekly chart, which is what we looked at a couple months ago in this stock, it is now in value as well on the weekly chart. So I like this name a lot. I did send this out, I believe, as a setup to members, but really nice look on this one. So again, it'd be nice to see this group catch a bit, and I do think this could get going for a little bit because all of these price patterns are so tight, and usually when they don't move like that, and because this one was also coiled up here, so I like this one. And again, don't have to mess with options. The options in biotech names are very difficult. The implied volatility is much higher than the normal indices, higher than tech. So very tricky with options. But you're talking about a $23 stock. I would not mess with the options here. I don't think it's needed. A lot of times I mess with options when the stock is $100 or above, and I don't want to outlay that much money. And I'll design a call spread or we'll go out a little bit further in options. But a $5 move, what's the percent? And again, you don't have to worry about theta decay. You don't have to worry about implied volatility. It's about almost a 25% move. So I like this one a lot. That's top of my list. And again, I'll tell you right now, again, I'm not giving out any recommendations, but don't be discouraged by market strength. A lot of times people say, oh, geez, the thing's up 7% today. I have to wait for a pullback. When things really start to break resistance and come out of a really tight area, then if you happen to get an inside day, that would be your, I think, go-to. But a lot of times they're not going to give you a chance to pull back from coming out of a really tight range. So again, I think top of the list, and it's nice to see it is nice to see something else catch some momentum to it, because I do think the software names. I mean, I think the software names are very tired right now. If you look at Twilio, for example, this was one of the names that I had on my weekend watch list. The thing got, and several names were very hot out of the gate. And then they're just doing this. And this is not the first time that we've seen this in the last week or so. They're just completely stalling. And there was a number of names that did this today. Another name that I was looking at today, which was on my watch list, was Ring. So again, sometimes no trade is the best trade, because you can't really catch these things on the 5-minute bar and think that you're going to get out at the tippy top. I think that's tough. So again, another name, and I can bring up about 5 or 6 other names that did that same exact pattern today. That is tough. It's very tough trading. The energy names, now they could be, it seems like anytime the energy names rally, it's a place to short. And if you are looking for some shorts in this market, I want you to this group, because they're rallying into resistance. It would change my mind if the price can get over the 20-day moving average, but here it touched the 20-day moving average and failed here, it failed here, it's trying again. So we'll see if that changes, but I would be more on the side of shorting, because energy is in a downtrend, right? That is the trend. I want to stick with the trend. What else did particularly well today? Some mining names. They were metals and mining. Nucor. Interesting. Nucor came out and reduced their numbers, their guidance, and the stock actually did okay. U.S. Steel actually finished up on the day, so maybe the bad news is in for these names. You could see the steel ETF was up 40 basis points, so really interesting, because those names were down a lot pre-market on that. What didn't perform well today? The banks again, and that continues to be the trouble. One of the trouble spots is that the banks cannot hold any rally. I think they had 1 or 2 days where they were strong not strong, but like up fractionally, and the down days seem to be much bigger than the up days are. The home builders gained back some of those gains too. That was another chart, and that'll kind of be warehoused for now. Because right at like a breakout area, the home builders are falling apart a bit. All right, so that's your recap for the day. A couple other names that looked appealing to me. FIVN, we went over this name. Really a nice looking setup, I would say. If you get out of this, you can see this thing has been digesting now for a while. And first, we had 1 bar above value here. Maybe give it 1 more day, if it starts to go that way, or take a small position, but nice move there. We were talking pre-market about some of the agriculture names. Mosaic had a nice day today. What did CF do today? A little bit higher. The only issue with this agriculture name is there's a VPOC up here, which is a little bit too close for me to initiate a position in. And I think I had one other name on my list. Grubhub. We saw some call buying in Grub as well. There was, this is kind of in the situation, is we are seeing some call buyers come into this. It's just a lot of them aren't working. So again, I think they went out pretty far in this Grubhub. You can see it is above value. It is in a downtrend, but at least it's above the 50-day moving average, but way below the 200. So maybe you could see a counter trend rally. Grub, it was this. So September calls, they did go out a little bit further. Tesla, a little bit of momentum call buyers in the beginning of the day, and then some puts at the end of the day. What else? Yeah, and then just a lot of small stuff. Interesting, there was an urban call buyer. Ali, I'll have to check open interest tomorrow, but I think there's something like 93,000 open interest on the Ali January 2035 calls. Okay, so we'll leave it there. The video is long enough for today, but it isn't a Monday. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow.